Okay, this one, I decided to do this just mostly because I was researching on how to do battery backup for solar. Most of my house is, most of my house is operated by solar with a couple pretty big exceptions, but I wanted battery backup. Now, I've got about 56 panels, not about, I have 56 panels, and they run 300, 340, something like that, watts per panel, and it's 18 kW total. So I've got a pretty fair system out there that produces quite a bit more power than I need. But I'm trying to put in battery backup for evenings, to a certain extent days when I'm not, I don't have any sun. I want it, of course, to integrate with the grid. Outages are not that important to me. The grid doesn't go down very often here, so I'm not real concerned about that. But I'm not trying to be totally independent of the grid. This is a system that, it uses a grid when it must, and it stays off of it when it can. I really don't want to have an uninterrupted supply of electrical power. I like to have the things that that I like to have, the comfortable things. I actually have an electrically powered hot tub, which the solar also deals with. The 18 kW that I'm using is in excess of what I need. Now, when I say that, obviously it's not going to work at night and so on like that. In the summertime, I'll produce 180, 90, up to 110 kilowatts a day. I don't use anywhere near that much, so it goes into a bank. And I tap that bank in the winter, November, December, January, part of February. I tap into that bank and they give me back the kilowatts that I had in excess of the summer. In the last couple of years, I have produced about 3,000 kilowatts more than I need. That's with the winter usage and everything. So I start out with about 6,000 or 8,000 kilowatts at the beginning of the winter, and then towards the end of the winter, I'm down to about 3,000 or 4,000 kilowatts. And it's recycled in March. Recycled meaning it's zeroed out and it's given to people that can't pay their electric bills. Now, during the deficit months, I am reimbursed by the utility at a retail rate. Whatever I pay for electricity, then I get that back in the winter. Well, the utilities can't do that forever. Nobody makes a profit if they sell for what they paid for. So there's going to be some issues come up with this in the future. More and more solar coming on with all the rebates and stuff that are out there now, and utilities are going to start screaming about this, and they'll probably end up paying about a quarter of what their retail is. That's my thoughts on it anyway. The utility I have pays even less than that. They're pretty fat. I'm also going to put in a water heater heat pump, and my space heating will be done with a heat pump. So I'm going to be pretty much all electric. Currently I'm using natural gas for water heating and space heating. So I'm considering battery backup. Now, what do you need for a battery backup system? Well, you're going to have an inverter / charger. You're going to have compatible inverters with your solar. You have your solar panels and then you have your inverters. I use microinverters. and they have to be compatible with the inverter charger that you're using for your battery backup. You'll also need a critical loads panel, and you'll have to have one of your arrays. I have 4 arrays right now. You'll have one of your arrays is going to be dedicated to charging up the battery backup. All of this has to be integrated into a system that is acceptable to the utility and to the authority having jurisdiction. So what are the options? You can buy a 15.4 kilowatt lithium battery. This is one of mine considering. And you can use that for your backup. It's not going to be enough. You're going to need 2. Then one of the options is to buy a lithium battery. So let's look at what you might need. In order to build this system, you're not going to need just batteries. You're going to have an inverter charger that's compatible with your solar system. You may have microinverters. The microinverters are going to have to be compatible with this inverter charger. So there's a few things there you got to deal with. You're going to need a critical loads panel. That's one of the standard things you have to have for that. One of your arrays is going to have to be repurposed for use exclusively with the batteries. It's going to be the battery charger that charges up the batteries during the day. This whole setup has got to have the approvals to be used as a complete system to the grid and to the authority having jurisdiction. So what are the options? Well, you can put an LFP battery, lithium battery. What I was looking at was 15.4 kilowatt hours. It's about $10,000. That's not going to be enough because you can only use 80% of it. So you're going to have at least one more. So $20,000? Yeah. What are the other options you have for storage? You could use lead acid. Okay, anybody that's used lead acid is not going to do it again. It isn't viable. Twice I bought lead acid batteries for my first electric car, and maintenance, very few cycles. I maybe got 150, 200 cycles out of them. Wasn't very much. So I wouldn't even consider these things. What about using a car? Okay, I've got a 100 kW battery sitting in my garage right now. It's in a Tesla car. Now, ideally you should be able to use that. And Elon told us years ago, yes, we're going to let you power your house with this thing and on. But we know about Elon's promises. They don't always seem to come to fruition. And so, I mean, it violates a warranty to do bidirectional charging with it, which means you could power the house or you could charge the battery. He's probably eventually going to do it, but the problem is he's going to put some sort of strings on it. You got to have Tesla solar panels or Tesla walls or something like that. So at this point, I don't think that's viable. Okay, a couple more possibilities here. You could buy like a 2017 Chevy Bolt. It's got a 60 kW battery in it. Could you use that? I mean, that's probably the cheapest electric car out there that's commonly available. And it's got a pretty good sized battery in it. Could you use that to operate this thing? I can't find any way to do it. Now, maybe you could butcher the thing up, and do something that made it work. I did find an inverter that could be used as 400 volts, but it's like $10,000. So now you get $30,000 in this silly thing. And it really doesn't pass anybody's muster. You know, this does have to pass code. Nissan Leaf. The newer Leafs do have bidirectional charging. Yeah, they're partnered with what is it? Fermata Energy. It has a system that's approved that you can actually power the building with it, charge the car, you know, on and on like that. Except it's only there for fleet operations. Like if you had a fleet of cars and you could plug them into this thing and it could do part of the building where you worked or something like that. Anyway, it's not viable. There's an interesting one. The Ford Lightning. Okay. It has bidirectional charging. You have to buy a special charger for it, and then there's the inverter charger that has to go in the house, the structure, and that's about $5,000. But you know, not bad. You can buy one of those things for the low 50s, get $7,500 off, and you got a truck too. You know, and it's got big batteries. The smallest battery is, I think, 98 kilowatts, and the big one's 130. So I was kind of looking at that. You know, I could change out my truck. I've got an old ice truck. Wouldn't cost me all that much. Wrong. The cheaper model, I think it's Pro, does not have that option. And the small battery does not have that option. I mean, that's a 98 kilowatt battery. It's a big battery, but you have to have the 130 kilowatt battery in order to do this. And so you're looking at probably $80,000 or $85,000 for the truck. And then you're going to add another about $5,000 for the extra charger, or for the upgraded charger, and the inverter charger that goes in it. And I just didn't think that was viable. Could you just take cells out of a Tesla battery, something like that? Most of the batteries I've seen for these used Tesla batteries run $12,000 to $15,000. And it could be like an 85 kW battery, pretty good sized battery. You can buy a cell of them, which is I think 5.2 kilowatts, and buy a few of those, and they're about $1,000 a piece. The problem here is there's a lot of question marks in just how you get it set up. I think you could probably do it, but it's certainly not going to pass anybody's code requirements. And you're going to be putting more money into this thing than just the battery. There's going to be quite a bit more to that. I didn't find it to be especially viable for what I wanted to do. I'm going to look at these car batteries. These are mostly NMC batteries. They're great for electric cars. They're the most energy dense, so they put out the most power, and range is kind of king. There are some electric cars using the LFP batteries, liquid or lithium phosphate, or lithium ferrophosphate, which is iron. Anyway, there's a differences between these batteries types. You can't generally charge these batteries to 100%. If you do, you will lose a considerable amount of life. So what you're going to end up doing is charging them to 80%, then dropping them down to 20%, because that's the normally accepted low for lithium batteries. Running them lower than 20% is going to reduce life of the battery. Any of them. And here I thought we'd do some numbers. Let's take that Chevy Bolt. It's a 60 kilowatt battery. Now the effective usable power, we're going to have to take 20% off the top and 20% off the bottom. So what we're going to end up with, we're losing 12 kW on the top for charging only to 80% and 12 kW for the maximum discharge. Okay, that's going to leave you with 36 kilowatt hours of usable power. That's figuring that you can come up with a way to set this battery up so that you could actually use it. I haven't seen many people doing it, so probably not so good. Okay, let's try the Tesla. Now the Tesla's got let's figure an 85 kilowatt hour battery, because that's probably what you're going to end up getting. Again, you're going to have to take 20% off the top and 20% off the bottom. Well, that means you're going to lose 17 kW on the top end, 17 kW on the bottom end, and you end up with usable power of about 51 kW. It's a used battery. Just like the Chevy Bolt battery, it's a used battery. So you're going to end up with some degradation. I'm going to say 15%. That might be a little bit high, but probably not. So you're going to lose off of the Tesla battery, you're going to lose another 13 kilowatt hours. So I end up with 38 kilowatt hours. The Chevy Bolt, you got degradation there too. So you're going to have about 27 kW, a lot less than what the battery was. So now I'm going to take a look at the new battery. Okay, it's an LFP. So a couple things about these LFPs. You can charge them to 100%. They're usually used charged to 100%. You can't discharge them below 20%, just like all other lithium batteries, but you can use them, you can charge them to 100%. Their voltage is lower, so they don't have as much degradation on the top end. Well, that's not bad. So if you took a 15.4 kilowatt hour battery and took off the 20%, you'd have 12.3. Okay, you're probably going to need at least two of these things. So 24.6 usable. That's less than the Tesla battery. It's less than the Bolt battery, and these are all kind of pie in the sky numbers anyway, but for the used ones. But it's not that far off of the Bolt battery. The Bolt battery is only 27 kW, and you got 24.6 with two of these batteries. So this $20,000 battery that we're talking about, remember, if I bought a Bolt and I did figure out a way to use the battery in it, I wouldn't have much more than I had with these two batteries that are brand new. And there's another issue with these LFP batteries. They tend to have more cycles, more discharge cycles than any other lithium battery. They can be 5,000 to 7,000. Now, 7 I think is maybe a little pie in the sky, but 5,000 discharges is really good. So this thing's looking better. You don't know how many discharge cycles you've got left on a used battery. Who knows? Depends on how well it's been cared for. So I'm kind of going towards this new battery. one thing, it's got a 10-year warranty. I'm going to have the cycles I want. There's a little less fire hazard with these things because they're less flammable than the NMC batteries. So let's look at some costs. The LFP battery costs about $10,500. Okay, everything's said and done. You'd have to have two, so that'd be $21,000. Okay, right now, well, not right now, in a few days, I guess, we're going to be back up to 30% for federal rebate. And the batteries do qualify, so do the inverter chargers. That means two of those batteries is going to cost $14,700. So that makes it look a little better. The inverter charger after the rebate is probably about $4,200. So you got about $18,900 in two batteries. Now I still think two batteries is a little bit less than what I'm going to want, but we're getting closer there. If I came back here in 3 or 4 years, there'd probably be all these bi-directional chargers set up for EVs. I'm doing this today. I mean, you got to do it sometime if you're going to do it, and so I'm going to do this today. And the LFP batteries are better for this stationary storage. Okay, so what I'm going to do after all this research and looking at all these different ways to come up with this, I'm going to go ahead, buy an inverter charger that matches my solar. I'm even considering adding another array of solar just for this system, and I'll talk to you about that in another video. But what I'm probably going to do is get the inverter charger, get two of the batteries. I may start out with one, but I'll probably end up with two, and I'm going to see how this works. It's a code compliant system, and hopefully it will comply with any grid requirements that may come around in the future. There's some requirements I know it's in Hawaii, I can't remember what other state, because they want their battery backup systems in Hawaii to be able to feed into the grid, because they got a real electrical problem there. So this is what I'm going to do. I'll update you as I go along on this thing. There's probably going to be kind of a rush for this equipment as of January 1st, but I will update you whenever I get around to getting this thing done. So that's it on this one. There is more to follow. It ought to be an interesting little journey. That's it on this one.